So good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever the case may be, wherever you are. I'm Lama Tom Broadwater, and I have the pleasure and the honor to give one of the series of introductory talks sponsored by KTD. The subject of our talk tonight is Understanding the World and Beings, Interdependent Origination. From my perspective, this sounds a little pretentious. It's pretentious to think that we can understand the world and beings in one talk by a low-level Lama. But on the other hand, if we can begin to understand this process involved in interdependent origination, we will be a little closer to understanding the world and beings. So that's it. My challenge tonight is to present this profound topic in a clear way. So in this session tonight, we'll follow a series of 12 links or steps that follow our developing world, particularly our inner world. More importantly, we will look at how our inner world develops through a reference to the 12 links of interdependent origination. On your side, you need to remain alert and follow the sequence of the 12 steps. You have a job as a student, and I have a job as a teacher. My job is to be clear, and your job is to try to remain alert to some of these topics. So I'll need your patience and I'll need your attention. So we're very fortunate to have the words of great teachers to help us understand different aspects of the Dharma. Trungpa Rinpoche being one of those teachers. And tonight I'm relying heavily on the book he wrote called it's actually a booklet called The 12 Links of Interdependent Origination. This booklet is a transcription of a talk he gave some years ago, and it was translated by Ken Holmes, Kempo Ken Holmes, and it was published by Nama Buddha Publications. You can get it on the internet fairly easily. So tonight, first, we'll look at the historical context of the 12 links. Specifically, we'll look at why the Buddha gave this foundational teaching in the first place. Secondly, we'll take each link and explore what it means. By the way, this is where you really need to pay attention. Next, we will review the Wheel of Life, also known as the Dharmachakra. That is a sort of a pictogram of the 12 links, sort of a cartoon kind of an affair that will help us understand better this endless cycle of rebirths governed by the laws of interdependent origination. Thirdly, we'll review some of the practical aspects, and this is probably one of the more important parts of the talk. We'll look at the practical applications of our studies tonight. So before we begin, let's set our motivation and intention by reciting the refuge vow. By reciting refuge, we are taking refuge in the three jewels: the Buddha, the unsurpassable teacher; the Dharma, the unsurpassable protection; and the Sangha, the unsurpassable guides. And prior to doing that, however, we'll also recite the lineage, Mahamudra lineage prayer. So Fyongtin, if you want to put that up, we'll go with that. Great Vajradhara, Great Vajradhara, Telo, Naro, Marpa, Milarepa, the Lord of the Dharma Lord Gompopa, know of the 3 times Karmapa and the lineage holders of the elder 4 and the 8 younger. O Kaju, the Drikun, the Takun, the Salpa, glorious Drupa, and so on, who have gained mastery of the profound Mahamudra. O Kaju Gurus, heed my prayer. Your lineage I uphold. O Kaju Gurus, heed my prayer. Your lineage I uphold. Please bless me so I may adopt your ways of liberation. Just as revulsions taught to be the legs of meditation, this meditator does not cling to any food or wealth and severs all the ties that bind me to this present life. Please bless me to be unattached to honor or to gain, just as devotion's taught to be the head of meditation. Continually, this meditator supplicates the Guru, who opens up the doorway to the trove of pith instructions. Please bless me so that uncontrived devotion may well forth, as undistractions taught to be the core of meditation. This meditator just remains not altering at all the fresh and pristine essence of whatever thought occurs. Please bless me to be free from the thinking there's a meditation. Just as it's taught, the essence of all thought is Dharmachakra, not anything at all, and yet arising in all ways, appearing to this meditator as unceasing play. Bless me to know samsara and nirvana are not two. In all my future lives, may I never be apart from the authentic gurus and embrace the Dharma's glory. May I perfect the qualities of all the paths and levels. And may I swiftly realize the state of Vajradhara. And now if we can go to refuge and bodhicitta. And we'll say this in English 3 times. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha. For the merit of accomplishing the 6 perfections, may I achieve awakening for the benefit of all beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha. Through the merit of accomplishing the 6 perfections, may I achieve awakening for the benefit of all beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Noble Sangha. Through the merit of accomplishing the 6 perfections, may I achieve awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all beings gain happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May all beings experience great joy and free from suffering. May all beings come to rest in the great equanimity, having the same great love for all. May all beings gain happiness in the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May all beings experience great joy free from suffering. May all beings come to rest in the great equanimity, having the same great love for all. May all beings gain happiness in the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings experience great joy, free from suffering. May all beings come to rest in the great equanimity, having the same great love for all. For some reason or another, my picture is not showing. I'm not sure what happened there.
It looks like the camera is, something's blocking the camera or something like that.
Nothing's blocking yet. Well, let me try one other thing. And if not, you just might have to see me fuzzy like this. I'm not sure.
Are you using a tablet or something? Because
Yes, I am.
I think what's going on is the camera got switched to use the back camera instead of the front camera.
So what do I do here?
There should be a button somewhere or something to switch between the front-facing camera and the
Oh, I
camera.
got it. Gotcha. Did that do it?
No, we still see page 1 of 9.
There
we
go.
go.
So I won there. Sometimes technology beats me, and sometimes I can beat technology. Tonight, I beat it. Yay! All right. So again, going back, what we're going to be talking about tonight are the interdependent origination. And basically, it's a foundational teaching, and it's about the world as we experience it. It's about relative truth, the world of appearances. This teaching is about how things appear. The ultimate truth, of course, is that the nature of things is, as they truly are, is that they are empty. But tonight, we're going to be talking about appearances as we experience them. So we are talking about relative truth. Okay. So each major religion and many philosophies have explanations for the origin of this relative world. Religions have their creation stories, for example, the story of Adam and Eve, but there's no such parallels in Buddhism. There's no reference to a creator God as an explanation for the relative world. At the time of the Buddha, there were nihilistic philosophies that stated that there really wasn't any cause for the relative world. They held that things occurred in a haphazard way without a cause. But I think today, when we observe the world, I think we understand that everything, in fact, is governed by causes. And these causes allow different things to appear. So it's true that things do have a cause. Now, many philosophies and religions think that the causes themselves have a divine cause. God or gods are the cause for appearances of things, including our own existence. These creation stories tell us how this divine drama gets played out. In these religions, of course, we worship and honor these gods or God as the authors of our precious lives. In fact, according to those religions, our happiness depends on our maintaining a relationship with these gods in order to ensure our happiness and salvation. To counteract these views, the Buddha taught interdependence as a way things manifest. The Buddha taught about this profound connectedness as the nature of all appearances. Things are not creators of themselves. Sort of a point here to note. Things don't create themselves. They are the results of causes and conditions. He broke this process down. In this process, everything appears because of a specific cause. So everything we experience in the outer world appears as a result of a cause. This can be seen in a simple example of a seed, an apple seed. An apple seed produces an apple tree. And in the same way, an apple seed does not produce a pear tree. So specific things arise as a result of specific causes and conditions. While the Buddha acknowledged the outer world, he was interested, perhaps more interested, in our inner world, the world of our mind and its experiences. In particular, he was concerned about our suffering. So, what is the cause of our suffering? When he looked at the mind and suffering, he saw that they too were the results of causes and conditions. He saw this as a beginningless process of a series of 12 interlocking steps. Each step is dependent on the previous step for the next step to appear. So at the same time, if a step is not present, the next step won't appear. It's fairly simple logic here. If we can begin to understand this process, we will begin to understand our inner world experience. And the Buddha, by teaching this 12-step process, teaches us how we might dismantle this process, freeing us from our suffering and leading us to liberation. This is why this teaching is very important and applies to us at whatever level of practice we are. Again, to restate, we are examining the inner life of our minds through the 12 links of interdependent origination. So let's begin. When the Buddha looked at the inner world of our mind, he saw that the first link in the chain of our existence was ignorance. I'm going to be saying that word a lot tonight. so I get used to that. The existence of ignorance. This link is fundamental and the basis for all other links. Everything subsequent to this link is predicated on this, what you might call original ignorance. So all deluded appearances in samsara, this wheel of life, this beginningless wheel of life, are the result of ignorance. All of samsara and all of our wandering in samsara, all of our suffering is dependent on this ignorance. So even our projects for samsaric happiness are colored by our ignorance. What's most basic to this ignorance? According to the Buddha, we are confused and deluded. We project things as real that do not exist. And what do we see as most real that has no substantial existence? You probably guessed it. It's a self that we see as most real. Although there is no self, we are under the mistaken belief that the self exists. It is by this confusion our samsaric life is fashioned. Think of it like this. All the ways we relate to things are generated by our ignorance. For example, we are confused because in the fog of ignorance, we believe that material objects will make us happy, that our cravings can be satisfied, and once satisfied, we can become stably happy. This is deluded happiness. We are forever adopting ignorant ways and lifestyles to make ourselves happy, and it's a futile effort. There is some good news, however, here that might get lost in our disappointment about the way samsara works. And that is that if samsara and our confusion were real and solid, and not just the result of our confusion, they would be nearly impossible to eliminate. Trungpa Rinpoche tells us that. But suffering and samsara are the result of ignorance and confusion. By working with the mind's confusion, it's possible to become free of them, to be liberated. So as Trungpa Rinpoche says, and I think it's one of the neater statements that he made in this little booklet, he says, it is not like samsara is real and we have to get rid of it. Rather, our perception of samsara is rooted in a big basic mistake. It is a mistake we have the potential to eliminate. And once it's eliminated, we are free. And we're free from all of samsara's delusions. So the aim of all of the Buddha's teaching is to guide us in overcoming our ignorance. Here I'm going to make a little digression that Trungpa Rinpoche made in his booklet. It's about the levels of teaching the Buddha gave based upon the needs of his students. The Buddha taught in 3 different levels to help us overcome our ignorance and confusion about about the way to ultimate truth. In the foundational vehicle, he taught that there was no lasting self, and as a result, our confusion about it causes all of our suffering to arise. To discover this, we examine the self, especially the 5 aggregates. And by doing so, we discover that the self is only a collection of elements. Also, we can look at the mind through a passage of time and see that this present I is not the I of the past, nor is it the I of the future. The teaching on interdependent origination is within the context of this foundational vehicle. But as we will see, it is helpful at whatever level of practice we are doing. And that's what Trungpa Rinpoche noted. At the next level, the Mahayana, we go further. We see that not only the self is empty, but all appearing things are empty, without solid, permanent existence. We do this through various reasonings that relentlessly attack our notions of the inherent existence of things. So we develop a fuller understanding of emptiness in the Mahayana. I think there have been previous teachings about this given by the other lamas at KTD. The third level is the Vajrayana, which allows us for a much more direct and therefore quicker route to reach experience and realization. How's that so? Well, we analyze, let me put it this way, to analyze each and everything and to have a full certainty and realization about their emptiness takes a very long time. But in the Vajrayana, we examine the mind directly and make a direct analysis of what we see. So on the gross level, we see our mind as a single thing that experiences thoughts and feelings. This is a very powerful habit we entertain. But through insightful looking, we find that the mind is not a thing at all. It has no color, no shape, no size, all the necessary attributes of things that have a solid form. In the Vajrayana, there are the Mahamudra teachings, where we learn shamatha and vipassana meditation. Through these practices, we come to recognize true reality. And there is the point that Trungpa Rinpoche is making about Vajrayana being a quicker method in discovering reality. Through these Vajrayana practices, we go to the root of the 12 links, which is ignorance. The importance of the 12 links of interdependent origination is that they help us to understand the pervasive nature of our ignorance and the importance of eliminating it. So the 12 links can be very helpful, even a motivator in our practice of the Vajrayana. So let's put this in practical terms and make a very simple but profound point. When there is a gross or coarse way of thinking, for example, the desire for things that are powerfully attractive to us, instead of recognizing them as inherently empty, we think of these things as important and we need to possess them. This ignorance is the first link. It pervades our thoughts and our feelings. It influences what we reject and what we adopt. In Sanskrit, ignorance is avidya, not seeing, blind to the insubstantial nature of reality. So we take the self to be real, we guard it, we defend it, we cherish it. We adopt futile plans to maintain it. And we've maintained this ignorance lifetime to lifetime, from beginningless time. We are born with ignorance. Now we come to the second link, and we're calling that karmic creations or mental formations. By the way, depending upon the teacher, there may be slightly different labels for these links, and not to get confused by that. What I've been really surprised about as I've been looking through the literature on and the teachings on the 12 links, what I've really been surprised about is the uniformity of the teachings, whatever particular branch of Buddhism one belongs to. If you listen to the teachings on the 12 links, there is a great deal of similarity. That's sort of a digression there. Sorry about that. So let's go back to the second link, the karmic creations or mental formations. And here we say, these are the imprints of our past actions we carry from lifetime to lifetime. So how do these imprints on our mind come about? Well, there are three root poisons, they're called: desire, aggression, and stupidity, which are rooted in ignorance. And these passions, these poisons, cause us to act. The strength of these can be very strong, as we all know, and overwhelm us. The power of these emotions determines our actions, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. Whether we do virtuous or unvirtuous things determines whether we will experience pleasure or negative things in the future. The results of actions are called the gathering together of circumstances. And that's called our karmic formations. This is the second link. And this is what we carry in to each lifetime, our karma, to put it in brief. It's our karma. We carry these imprints with us until their results come to fruition or they're purified through practice. The next link is called consciousness. So because of the first link of ignorance, we perform actions, and these actions plant a seed in our mind, or we could say imprints our consciousness. The way our consciousness has been imprinted determines the quality of our life experiences. As we act day to day, this is really an important point, and sometimes we sort of mindlessly forget this point. As we act day to day, we are continually imprinting or conditioning our stream of consciousness. This rebirth consciousness is what arises at conception. The two previous things were like seeds. This conditioned consciousness becomes the cause of the fourth link, which is called name and form. At the first moment of this rebirth consciousness, the mind-body complex arises. I mean, this is sort of like basic biology, huh? The mind-body complex arises. Form, the first aggregate, is literally, in this case, the embryo. Feeling, cognition, mental events, etc., are there as potential or in name only. So the fourth link is called form for the embryo and name for the various feelings, cognitions, and mental events that will eventually arise. So let's go on here. The fifth link is called perceptual entrances, or the basis for our senses. Pretty simple to I think to understand this. The visual, hearing, smelling, tasting, sensation, and mental faculties, the sense organs, become the basis for their respective consciousnesses. Because these organs will allow our experience of the world, they are called perceptual entrances. Actual perception will occur in the next link. And the next link is called contact. Contact has a very precise meaning here. Contact means the sense faculty and the mind faculty come in contact with the object of that contact to the link of consciousness. When these three come together, when the visual contact is made, once all these come together, we have a sense of the outside world. So when all these various senses and their consciousness come in contact with the actual world, then we have a sense of that world. Contact leads us to the seventh link. Now we're getting a little bit more into what we're going to be, that's really important. I'll put it that way. The seventh link is called feeling. You understand why I say that a little bit later. So once we have central contact, feeling inevitably arises. These feelings may be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, or indifferent. This raw feeling quality is good, bad, or indifferent. And that's the seventh link, feeling. So, for example, the feeling of compassion leads to good karma, and feelings of hate lead to negative karma. Something else happens then after we feel something. When we have a pleasant feeling due to a contact of let me put it this way. When we have a pleasant feeling due to contact, a sense of need arises. When a pleasant feeling arises, we want to maintain that feeling and continue them. When we experience a negative feeling, on the other hand, we want to get rid of it. This leads now to the next link, grasping or involvement. I like the word involvement here better than grasping. And Trungpa Rinpoche allows us to use that word, involvement. So once we have feeling, we grasp or become involved in that. So when we have a pleasant feeling, let's go with that. When we have a pleasant feeling, we want to keep that feeling going. There is a hankering for it. Our mind becomes involved in clinging to this subjective experience. If the experience is unpleasant, one's minds become involved in getting away from the unpleasant experience. So involvement can be clinging or rejection. So it is that there are really three kinds of involvement: clinging, rejection, and indifference. And now that we have involvement, we make plans on how to gain more pleasure and avoid pain. So we make our plans. This leads to the next link. And Trungpa Rinpoche described that not only as grasping, he used the word adoption. And I like that word, adoption. So the next link is adoption. Here we make definite plans to get the object of one's desire or avoid something unpleasant. We are figuring out a way to get these things on a regular and consistent basis, if possible. I love this term adoption more than the term grasping, as I say. To me, this suggests that we adopt what? Well, it's sort of like we adopt a lifestyle, you might say, around avoiding pain and maximizing pleasure. We might place an emphasis on seeking pleasure, sensual pleasures. That might be our lifestyle. Or we might be worried about avoiding pain, and we live in a fearful hiding place, you might say. Up to this point, all these links have been mental. In the 10th link, we make a decision to put into action what we've been thinking and feeling up to this point. Now we act. This leads to the 10th link, which is called becoming. So at this stage, we are real live actors in the drama of samsara. We are doing actual physical, verbal, and mental actions. These actions are still under the influence. Keep in mind, they are still under the influence of ignorance. So we again are creating karma, planting new seeds that will manifest in a future rebirth. And this obviously leads to the next link, which is rebirth. To restate, because of the actions of the 10th link, karma we have created in this life will cause rebirth in samsara. Because of our karma, we begin a certain type of life, which will start in the womb with the link we called name and form. We will be born, and the body will develop, and our lives will develop according to the karma we have accumulated. Because of this birth, there will be all the various forms of suffering one has during life, which is dealt with in the 12th link. And the 12th link is aging and death. I'm getting very familiar with aging and getting more familiar with the possibility of death. Sorry for that digression. Okay, so the 12th link is aging and death, which stands for all the various kinds of suffering we experience in life. Death sort of brings together in very clear focus all the difficulty and agony we have in our suffering, all the burdensome, unpleasant, disagreeable things that come our way. It sort of puts the focus on that. And all are there. All this suffering is there because we were born. They are inevitable. They are part of the process of life. Death brings that into sharp focus. It brings into focus the futility of our worldly plans we adopt to avoid pain and maximize pleasure. So let's go to the little pictogram. Yang can we do that now? This is sort of the fun part. This is the cartoon part of that. Can you get that up there? Here we go. On my screen, I can blow it up a little bit. I don't know if you can do that or not. But this represents the wheel of life. It's called the Dharmachakra. It's a pictogram. It's often put in a tanka. It's often posted on the outside of monasteries, particularly in Tibet. And there's often a monk that's assigned to explain to pilgrims exactly what this is all about. So let's go to the very center, the hub. And there you see a pig, out of which a snake and a rooster appear. The pig represents ignorance. The snake represents aggression. And the rooster represents desire. So at the very hub of samsara, our samsaric existence, those three are prevalent, are what drives, are the hub of the wheel, you might say. On the next level is, you see the white and the black. The white represents karma that's positive, that leads us to higher realms. And the black represents the negative karma we do that results in our going to the lower realms. So in the next spokes are the 6 realms. The top half are the higher realms, and the lower half are the lower realms. So let's start with the animal realm, which is at the lower right-hand side. Looks like a nice place to be, very peaceful. Of course, in the animal realm, one always has to be concerned about being eaten, so it's not always that pleasant. The next is the hell realm. The next is the hungry ghost realm. Then the human realm, and basically showing the activity of humans, birth. You see there a man carrying a bundle, and that's basically example of death. He's carrying a corpse, and so forth. So, and then the top realm are the 2 God realms. Both look pretty good, but when you think about it, in the God realm, they live really nicely, but towards the end of their lives, they realize and have a foreboding about returning to lower realms. So it's not such a wonderful place. Besides that, it's not a great place to practice Dharma because you have everything you need. In the human realm is actually the best place to be born. Why? Because there's just enough pain to move us along, but enough leisure that we can practice Dharma. And then over on the right-hand side is of the top quadrant, top half is what's called the jealous God realm. And you see a guy there, if you can look closely enough, there's a guy chopping down a tree. And what that's all about is basically this tree that bears fruit began in the jealous God's realm, but it grew up into the higher realm of the gods. And the guy's chopping the tree down because he's jealous. He's angry that what began with him is the fruit of it is going to be enjoyed by those other than in his own realm. So now let's go to the outer rim, and I think we have a different slide to go there. This is the 12 links, and it's a pictogram of the 12 links. I think that's the correct word to use. Are we able to get that on there? Yeah, there we go. So over, so the first link is ignorance, and it shows a blind man. The next is the mental formations. It's basically about karma. Karma is depicted here as the potter creating a pot. So basically, karma creates our next existence, instrumental in creating our next existence. Consciousness is represented by the monkey. It's continually moving about. It's distracted. It's complicated too. If you'll notice too, if you can see over on the right-hand side, the first two say that those come from our past life. And then the consciousness is both part of our present and our past, and linked to our past. The next is form and name, and they're represented by two men in a boat being carried across a lake by an oarsman. And the symbol here, I'll just read it, what it says. The human psychological and physical elements are dependent and inseparable. Together they float on the stream of existence. Meaning, name refers to the four aggregates that constitute a sense of individual identity, feeling, perception, conditioning factors, and consciousness, while form represents the physical form. As I said earlier in this talk, it represents the embryo. The next are the six senses, and that's fairly easy to figure out why they would put 6 windows there, representing the 6 senses. Contact, there they have a man and woman in congress, basically meaning the meeting of senses and their objects producing an experience of phenomena. So let's go on. So the next is feeling. And it's interesting what is portrayed here. Feeling is presented as a man poking his eye with a stick. It's like it's painful sometimes. This feeling we have is painful. Anytime we encounter objects, there's going to be a feeling, and again, represented by the stick in the eye. Next is craving, and it's here it has a man imbibing, eating and drinking. The next is grasping, and we have a monkey climbing a tree to get a hold of the fruit. We also said in our previous talk that Trungpa Rinpoche called this adoption. So he's made a plan and he's going up and he's grabbing the fruit. Becoming is simply a person as a whole person. It's also described as a woman moving towards her lover. Sometimes a pregnant woman is there. It means we come into existence. We are a person, an active person in samsara. And this, again, as we said, produces birth, which is portrayed here, old age and death. And that is a man carrying a bundle, a dead man, to the charnel grounds. So that's a little cartoon for us tonight. So if you want to come back now, again, thank you for your attention. This has been having to go through each one of these is a tedious process, but it does bear fruit, I believe, by looking at these things, taking them apart and seeing them in this way. So let me now go to maybe some of the consequences or some of the reflections we might have as a result of studying the 12 links. We might be a bit discouraged here when we think about our samsaric existence. The fact is, you and I have experienced ignorance, and it has pervaded our lives. And this misapprehension is from beginningless time. Knowing that ignorance has no beginning seems a bit overwhelming. At least it does to me. But the Buddha, through his example and his teaching, shows us a way out of this beginningless cycle. By the way, I didn't show the pictogram. Outside the pictogram, generally there's the Buddha pointing to the moon, indicating that there is a way out of this samsaric cycle. And he's pointing to the moon, nirvana, in this case, in terms of the foundational vehicle. But it does seem a bit overwhelming. So while what the Buddha says that while we have experienced suffering from beginningless time, our suffering can end. According to the Buddha's teaching, suffering is not our perpetual problem. It doesn't have to be endless. So the Buddha points the way out. And the question is how? The aim of practice is to find that way out. It's said that on the night of the Buddha's enlightenment, the Buddha worked his way backward through the 12 links of interdependent origination, seeking a point where release was possible. Why is there old age, sickness, and death? Because of birth. Why is there birth? Because of actions of becoming. Actions are what are motivated by greed, hatred, and delusion. Why are we involved in these actions? Because of grasping. Why are we grasping? Because we're feeling. Why are we feeling? It's because of contact. Why contact? Because of the sense organs, and so forth and so on. So where do we start to extricate ourselves from all of this? It is right at the point of contact, feeling, and involvement that we can begin to break this chain of conditioning. When pleasant things arise, we don't have to cling. When unpleasant things arise, we don't have to condemn, run away, or curse. When we experience neutral feelings, we don't have to become forgetful, mindless. When we experience feelings, in short, we don't have to compulsively and habitually grasp or push away. Our practice of meditation makes this mindfulness more possible. Essential to our shamatha is our letting go. Whatever may arise in our meditation, we let go, freeing ourselves from conditioned responses. In light of that, the Buddha said, the way of forgetfulness is the way to death. On the other hand, let's be honest. it takes a powerful mindfulness in each moment, not to allow our feelings to result in craving, desire, and involvement. So how do we do that? I'm reminded of a response Isaac Perlman made when asked how one learns to play a violin. And his response was, slowly, slowly. We can't just stop feeling on the spot. Feelings are based on habitual tendencies, past karma, and therefore a common factor of the mind. They are there. Feelings are there. But we can disengage, let go, and when we experience them, we can experience them without clinging. Our meditation practice makes this possible, but slowly over the course of time, slow and steady as we go. Also, by the adoption of an identity, a different lifestyle, as a bodhisattva, and mindfully practicing the 6 paramitas, we are making different plans for our lives based upon our understanding of interdependent origination. Our new plan is moving us toward an enlightened way of the bodhisattva. Yet, when we carefully investigate, we see that ignorance in its subtle and in some cases not so subtle forms remains. In these circumstances, the Buddha's teachings and the practices of the Vajrayana are there to assist us in dispelling these vestiges of ignorance. We learn about our Buddha nature. We learn, and this is really the beautiful thing, we learn that our ignorance is like a cloud and that our Buddha nature is the sun. Buddha nature is and always has been present behind the clouds of our ignorance. Beginningless ignorance can have an end for us. So through the specialized practices of the Vajrayana, deity practice, purification practices, preliminary practices leading to Mahamudra, Mahamudra itself, and the enhancement practices related to Mahamudra, we can begin to experience states concordant with Mahamudra, and finally Mahamudra itself, enlightenment. What does enlightenment look like? That's a big question. And I don't know exactly the answer to that question. We'll need to ask the Khenpos, Rinpoches, and realized beings about that question. But Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche gave an answer that satisfies me given my level of understanding and practice. He said that when we become awakened, when we are enlightened, appearances will not disappear into a void. It's not a blank nothingness. Rather, we will see appearances as they truly are. As the lineage prayer says, the radiant display of the Dharmachakra. So, returning to the words of Trungpa Rinpoche, it is not like samsara is real and we've got to get rid of it. Rather, our perception, the big mistake, that's what we need to eliminate. And we all, because we all have Buddha nature, we all have the potential to eliminate ignorance. End of quote. So we all have the Buddhist teachings and all the enlightened practices of this glorious lineage, all to dispel the darkness of ignorance and break the chain of interdependent origination. We have our Buddha nature. My humble prayer for you and for me is about our practice. And my wish for you, my wish for all of us, is that we practice confidently, mindfully, resolutely, joyfully. And yes, steady as we go. So thank you. And I appreciate your kind attention. And again, thank you very much. So, Yang Tian, you want to put up our closing prayers? By this merit, may we attain omniscience, defeat the enemy wrongdoing, and free all wanderers soon from the ocean of existence, churned by the great waves of birth, age, sickness, and death. I fully dedicate all this virtue, following in my training the knowledge of the warrior Manjushri, and in the same way, that of Samantabhadra and all the others. Through the inspiration of the attainment of the Buddha's Trikaya, of the unchanging truth of suchness, and of the undivided intent of the Sangha, may these aspirations be fulfilled as they were made. Karmapa, you who are the activity of all the Buddhas, victorious over the four Maras, may your teachings, the essence of Dharma, continuously spread to the limits in all directions. Greatly increase and always flourish auspiciously. Again, thank you so much for your attention tonight, and may all of your practices go well. Good night. Take care. All the best.